crowds flocked to the island from all over the Southwest to enjoy the beaches and the popular amusement parks. One popular attraction, Electric Park, was said to closely rival New York's Coney Island. Tourists would rent beachwear at the bathhouses. Ladies' beach attire in the Victorian era would protect them from exposure to the sun and male onlookers. Galveston had a city ordinance that required bathers to be covered from knee to elbow. In the 1920s, the island hosted a popular beauty contest called the Bathing Girl Review. After a few years, the name was changed to the International Pageant of Pulchritude, and young beauties from all over the world would parade around in the fashionable swimsuits of the day. It would later on become the Miss Universe pageant. These events attracted big crowds to the seawall. Some records state as many as 150,000 people showed up for the festivities. The city no longer enforced the ordinance for women's beach attire. Later on, the famous $1 million pleasure pier would be built out over the water. It was a 4-block-long amusement pier. Shows were staged in the large outdoor theater. One of Galveston's most famous landmarks was the glamorous Balinese Room, the premier night spot along the Texas coast in the 1940s and 50s. It was built on a huge pier extending out over the Gulf.
My husband and I came to Galveston in 1955. Neither one of us had ever lived on the coast, and so we thought that would be a wonderful idea to live on an island. There were 2 gambling establishments in Galveston. The first one was the Hollywood Dinner Club, and then there was another gambling establishment that we found out was the Balinese Room, which was located at 21st Street. It was out on a pier. You would see these big limousines drive up with all the fancy people getting out.
Oh, now there was paradise on earth. Of course, you know, it had the porcelain palm trees around the dance floor with black neon lighting in them that made the men's shirts look like they were blue when they were on the dance floor. That was a big deal. And hand-painted murals of the island of Bali around the walls. And, of course, the gambling room was way in the back after you had walked a half a block on that pier to get there.
It was it was Art Deco. When you went, you wore your fancy clothes. We saw Phil Harris there, Alice Faye. We saw Bob Hope.
Law enforcement had a tough time enforcing the state's anti-gambling laws in Galveston. The local sheriff said he didn't have enough men to raid the places, and if he did close them, business at the island's hotels would suffer.
The Rangers would come to raid us, but there was a gal on the front door, that had 3 buttons on the floor. One for the door onto the pier, one for the door off the pier, and the middle one she hit when she saw the Rangers, which said, "Raid, raid, raid."
Rangers would come in, and they would go back, and by the time they got to the dining room, the band would strike up The Eyes of Texas, and everybody would stand up, and this would deter the Texas Rangers.
By the time these guys would get back to the gambling room, well, the craps tables had become pool tables, or billiards tables rather. The roulette wheels had been were on wheels and shoved under panels, and the blackjack tables folded up into the walls, and the slot machines were thrown through a trap door down into the Gulf of Mexico.
So by the time the Rangers got there was nothing going on.
But time ran out for the infamous Balinese Room, and finally state authorities shut down the gambling operation.
The shutdown was in 1957, conducted by the then Attorney General Will Wilson, who had no choice because the mayor of Galveston had challenged him on Galveston being an open city, and it would remain that way, so he had to go to war.
The Balinese Room continued on as a restaurant, but had lost the excitement and glamour. It became such a legend that Texas rock group ZZ Top wrote a song about it called Balinese. During Galveston's golden era, its residents considered the city to be the cultural leader of Texas. Even today, Galveston maintains a lively arts and culture scene with festivals and art exhibits.
Galveston's a very deceiving place for the population. It has so many things, everything from an incredibly talented creative side, from the performing arts to the visual arts.
One island resident wrote that Galveston cheers the eye, satisfies the senses, and replenishes the soul.
Galveston, oh Galveston,